So I'm joined here with Yonis Legrand from the Netherlands. He's a nuclear engineer, lives in Eindhoven. And we have also Christophe Corazza. Am I saying this right? Yes? Corazza, who is from Belgium. And he is also a nuclear engineer doing a PhD for at the Belgian Nuclear Research Center of SCKCN. So, welcome everyone. Maybe so I gave some short introduction. Today, what we will talk about is the change in politics and the future plans for nuclear power in Belgium and the Netherlands, two countries which in the last 20 years have had plans to look into the phase out of nuclear power, neighboring countries. And today we are feeling that this is changing, but maybe we can start with you, Yonis, about a bit of the history of nuclear power in the Netherlands. For a bit of context, Netherlands only has one nuclear power plant running of about 450 megawatts electric. But maybe you want to talk about this.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know the exact dates. I think the first considerations around nuclear power in the 50s and 60s, there were some small experimental reactors. We had in Dodewaard in 65, we had our own micro reactor of 50 megawatts. This was unfortunately shut down in 96 when the EU transitioned to a more liberalized electricity market, and this community-owned power plant did not, fit in well within this new paradigm. But it was probably not very economic either way. So the first serious power plant was in 73. It was in 73, and that's the power plant in Borselen. It was built, it was a German model from Siemens, 450 megawatts, and it's been operating for 50 years to date. What else can I mention? I can also mention that we have a large research center in the northwest of the country at Petten, and in the northeast we have for a very long time our own enrichment installation from Urenco, the Dutch, German, British conglomerate. So
I was asking you, why is there only one nuclear power plant and producing only about 1 to 3% of the country's electricity?
Yeah. No, that's a very good question, because that comes up. I think there were plans for like massive expansion to 6 gigawatt reactors, but a few things came to play. For one, of course, there was a large public resistance, like in many countries, attached to concerns over nuclear weapons and so forth. But so there was, the main thing is that gas fields were discovered. So there was, a very abundant gas field in the North Sea, enough to heat our homes for decades. And when the plan for nuclear power came, there were a few collection of politicians, people in civil society, researchers who were, scared, and they said, "Look, let's take a moment to consider." That was their note, and there's actually one of them is a famous Dutch physicist, leader of D66, who later last year signed a letter that no, we should go for nuclear power. So that's a good change of opinion. So this note came. We took some time. Then I think Chernobyl happened, and that buried this discussion for several decades.
Thank you for this short introduction on the history of nuclear power in the Netherlands. Now, the same question to you, Christophe. Can you talk to us a bit about the Belgian situation? I know that Belgium was one of the precursors in Western Europe for nuclear power.
Indeed, yeah. Well, actually, the story about Belgium and nuclear power is quite a euphoric one, and eventually it ended in a downfall. Basically, Belgium has always been a pioneer in nuclear energy, nuclear technology in general. We were one of the first who had working nuclear reactors. For example, the BR1 reactor, which is a graphite-moderated reactor, was one of the first reactors operational worldwide. In terms of, we are talking about during the Manhattan Project.
And this reactor, by the way, is still operating today.
It's still operational today. We have the BR2 reactor. By the way, these reactors are all at the Belgian Nuclear Research Center. The BR2 reactor, which is also one of the, also a very old reactor. It's a pressurized water reactor. Then we have the BR3 reactor, which is now decommissioned. One of the first reactors that has also been completely decommissioned.
If I'm not mistaken, for the public, this is a one of the first prototype of a power reactor, not for research purposes, but for the production of electricity.
Indeed, commercial.
Yeah.
So BR3 was a pressurized water reactor, really purpose-built for commercial electricity production. It has been decommissioned by now, also proving that end-of-life cycles of nuclear reactors, and that we can indeed fully decommission a nuclear reactor. So these are the pioneering things that Belgium has done, not only in terms of nuclear reactor research, but also Belgium is one of the first countries who was involved in nuclear research in general. Maybe a nice thing to know is that Belgium has the dubious honor of providing the enriched uranium for America and their Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project has been due to the supply of enriched uranium from Belgium. Belgium provided the enriched uranium that America needed for the Manhattan Project.
Very, very dubious as an honor.
But this is very old. It's much before commercial power.
Yes, it's much before. Because we had we had Congo,
It gets even more dubious.
Yes, and but thanks to this, we have established a solid position inside the nuclear industry, nuclear technology, and that's also the reason why SCK-CEN, the Belgian Nuclear Research Center, has been established.
But it was established mostly for energy production, I understand, because
for energy production and for not only energy production but also for nuclear reactor technology development. What else? These are things that happened in the past. Nowadays, SCK has shifted its focus more towards the development of future generation nuclear reactors. My PhD is about the development of future generation nuclear reactors, especially ones that are cooled by lead and lead bismuth, so heavy metals. Not only this, but we do also research related to power generation for space applications, also material research and so on. So we have diversified our scientific research beyond the nuclear reactor technology.
I think you should also add, when you're talking about this lead-cooled nuclear reactor, like what is the advantage in terms of full utilization of nuclear fuel or reuse of nuclear waste?
Yes, so the reason why we are going for lead-cooled fast reactors, that means that the energy of the neutrons, the energy of the particles inside the reactor are the neutrons inside the reactor have much more energy. Thereby, we can basically break down all the nuclear waste that is produced inside the reactor. So normally, in a normal thermal reactor are the reactors that are now operational. Think about a boiling water reactor, a pressurized water reactor. All the reactors worldwide are, give or take, thermal reactors. A thermal reactor, the energy of the particles, of the neutrons inside the reactor are relatively low. And that means that due to neutronics and blah, 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 we create a lot of radioactive waste. That radioactive waste will stay toxic for more than 300,000 years. So that's an immense amount of time.
Well, that depends on the on what you compare it with, right? In essence, everything is always
let's maybe come back to.
I would like to, really pull out the essence. Is we only use 1% of the natural uranium in existing reactors, in our water-cooled reactors, and it's economic, but it is also a bit wasteful. And with lead-cooled, you could use 50, 100%. We'd have a lot more.
100% might be a bit too optimistic. Of
Okay,
course,
okay.
Can I just refocus a bit the discussion, because we're discussing at once about fast reactors, which is not exactly the topic.
But this is what Belgium is doing, right? But okay.
So today you didn't really talk about the. So my question was about like the development of nuclear power, but one thing that you didn't mention is that in the 1970s it was decided to go for a big expansion of nuclear, unlike the Netherlands. We had the BR3 reactor, which was the first prototype of a pressurized power reactor that makes for the generation of electricity. It was a 100 megawatt reactor, megawatt electrics. It was a 30 megawatt electric reactor. It was a bit more than 100 thermal. And then after, Belgium decided to go full scale with large reactors.
Indeed,
and they developed exactly 7 nuclear power reactors between 1975 and 1985. We have now 6 gigawatts of nuclear. But then the question is, what happened in 2003 with let's say, the long-term vision of Belgium for nuclear power? Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
Well, yeah, unfortunately Belgium has, that's where the euphoric story of Belgium basically turned into something much more darker. We decided to basically phase out nuclear for good. And we basically decided to phase out nuclear for good, thereby closing down one by one in a phase out actually all our 7 reactors due to political reasons, and it was also fueled by what has happened in Fukushima. Eventually, the Belgian politics has retracted that decision a little bit, and they have recently decided, I think it's about a year ago or something like this, that they will keep the 2 youngest reactors, Doel 4 and Tihange 3, open for another 10 years to make the transition to full to renewables complete. That has been that's the downside basically of the whole story.
Okay. Can you tell me now a little bit more about the Netherlands? So you told us that the Netherlands had a bit more difficulty than Belgium to develop nuclear power in the 70s. One of the reasons is that in Belgium we did not discover gas fields as the Netherlands did. So Belgium went much more advanced in this, producing up to 60% of its power by the late 90s. So what is happening now in the Netherlands? Well, is there a plan like Belgium to decommission, or?
Okay, so first I would like to mention in 2008 the nuclear discussion had revived in the Netherlands for climate reasons, although climate was then a bit less on the agenda than now, but it was heavily polarized, so it was mainly the liberals, Christian Democrats, who are on the right side of the spectrum, who were proposing this, and the left was very much against. But at the same time, they were considering either nuclear or coal, and I think the coal decision did go forward. Nuclear had somewhat of a majority support, and then, well, there was the accident in Fukushima, the discussion was buried, and it was just, it was no longer polarizing.
So it became a taboo.
I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe a taboo. It's more like it's just something you didn't discuss.
It was buried. It's like a taboo.
It was buried. And the coal plants, it's quite funny. They were built, and then already in 2016, the government realized like, oh, but this is not great for our climate plans, and I think they even entered in contracts to pay the coal plants to phase down. So that was the situation back then. We've had a major shift in public opinion in 2018, which I can talk about more later. but just to the concrete plans. So after a change in 2018, the plan in the last government, in 2021, they announced they want to build 2 big reactors. So they did not specify, but we can imagine that it's somewhere between 1 and 1.5 gigawatts per piece. They have also supporting development of the small modular reactors. But this is something that I think is more based on local or private initiatives to do that. But the Dutch government has reserved 5 billion euros in total for a nuclear program for the next 10 years. And it's imaginable that a large portion will do this to prepare the large reactors. Oh, so finally one more thing. So in, I think 2013, the small reactor in Borsele, 500 megawatts, it turned 40 years old. And it was around then that, again, partly climate reasons, partly pragmatic reasons that like we have to maintain this energy source, they decided to prolong it by 20 years until 2033. And this is not strange. I don't fully understand if it's based on a license, but it's also written in law. 2033 is a legal closure date of Borsele. But there has been research that this power plant could probably last 80 or more years. And this is Belgian research, by the way. This is similar research to what was done in the Belgian reactors. So there are negotiations ongoing about postponing this. There's a political will, but I think there needs to be more refined investigation, if this is possible, environmental effects and all that. But those 2 things are the policy: prolongation of the existing one and building of new ones.
Maybe very shortly you say, so the discussion was buried in 2013 or 2011 after Fukushima, and now suddenly they have a build-out plan. I wouldn't say plan, but envisaged. What has changed in the Netherlands, and how has it changed?
So I think the shift in public discussion was really quick in 2018. And maybe for a longer time there were people writing opinion pieces in newspapers. Also there was more of an international discussion that started appearing around 2017. You know, worldwide advocates for nuclear energy, or you know, some famous scientists like James Hansen. But this didn't influence the discussion that much, or it was like, oh, it's a small topic, but you know, whatever, it's not for us. But in 2018, a comedian made a plea for nuclear energy, and this is really how powerful some celebrities can be. He's not just any comedian. He is Arjen Lubach, is our version of the Daily Show in America, Jon Stewart. So his show was watched every week by 2 million people. He basically summarizes the news in the week in a funny way. So 20-minute episode about nuclear energy, going over all the arguments, you know, the history, concerns about nuclear waste, concerns about nuclear accident. You know, he rebutted all of these, and then he discussed also the advantages. And yeah, that had a big impact on the public discourse. And after that, suddenly politicians had the courage to talk about it again, and support has been rising ever since. I'll also say one last thing, which I do think plays a factor, is we're expanding massively in wind and solar. So we now have the highest rate of solar panels per capita. We caught up with Australia. Wind on sea, wind on land. But the Netherlands is a tiny, packed country. Like, I think we're probably the densest populated country in Europe after Monaco. So I think there's a lot of space for renewables. I think it's technically possible, but socially you run into barriers where people start noticing them everywhere. So that played into the favor of nuclear, where it's like, okay, but you have one power plant, and most people might never see it. You know, it's there, and
you're talking about being it too intrusive. The renewables, actually, all the solar panels, all the wind turbines.
Yeah, and I have to say, look, this is not my own opinion. I'm a big fan of the view of wind turbines, but I'm also an engineer, so I get off on large industrialized structures. But Yeah, we had a lot of discussion about the view or something. I don't personally understand it, but that's the arguments that are made.
Well, it's the NIMBYism, like people want wind energy, but not in my backyard.
Yes, wind energy is the most popular energy source in the Netherlands, with like in the polls 70% or more of support nationally. But in your neighborhood, suddenly that support changes. It's strange.
So if there is a deployment of wind energy very close to your neighborhood, people start to get wary of this.
Although there is nuance, because it depends on the agreements between the supplier and the locals. So if the supplier just puts it there and you have to deal with it, people don't like it. But if they, involve the locals in the discussion or give them some co-ownership, it becomes more popular. But we came here to talk about nuclear.
So which is actually also the case in Belgium. In Belgium, we had a big wind farm. They wanted to put it at the Belgian coast, close by to the seaside. However, people who were living there, they were complaining. They were in favor of wind energy, but they were complaining that they had a view on the turbines. On the turbines, yes. So, again, to come back to your argument, we would like wind energy, but not in my backyard. Not in my
sea yard.
My sea yard.
This reminds me of again a concrete case in Amsterdam. Where the most green left voters, the highest support for wind energy, and in the first two protests when there were plans for wind turbines in the harbor, it's like,
So to come back now to the Belgian situation. So we heard that in the Netherlands there was a big shift in, let's say, the breaking the taboo, raising the discussion. I think in Belgium the situation is slightly different. We now still have more than 40% of our energy which is produced, or electricity which is produced by nuclear energy. There's still a law to phase out nuclear.
Indeed.
But what is has there been a paradigm change like there was in the Netherlands? Or is this also still under the carpet? Are we discussing nuclear in Belgium, or what's the situation currently?
The situation currently, well, recently at COP we have had an agreement with different countries. Belgium, especially Belgium and France, was the main initiative taker of the whole agreement. That we would like to triple nuclear energy by 2050.
Triple?
Yeah, triple. That has been going on.
But I don't believe Belgium has ratified actually this agreement. So my understanding is that the Prime Minister has presented this nuclear summit in Brussels next year, but Belgium is not one of the ratifiers. So today Belgium is still phasing out nuclear.
That's the question, actually. That's something that we do not know. Normally, according to the Prime Minister, he has, he was the person who was advocating this on COP itself a few days ago.
So just for our viewers, I think what has happened is indeed there was a pledge by 22 countries. Well, it was 20 countries, and then 2 countries joined in a little bit later during the COP.
In total 22, I think.
Now, so it was 20, and then it rose to 22 during the COP to triple nuclear power by 2050. And our Prime Minister, Alexander De Croo of Belgium, I didn't introduce myself, but I was also from Belgium. We've seen each other before. He was there for the announcement because Belgium is going to host a World Nuclear Summit in March of 2024, and that is why he was there with this pledge next to President of France Emmanuel Macron and Dr. Raphael Grossi, the chief
International Atomic Energy
director of the IAEA.
So it's interesting. Your Prime Minister advocated for this pledge but did not sign it. My government signed it.
That's where the confusion starts. Actually, he and the president of France, they were the two ones who really advocated the whole tripling of nuclear energy. But the question arises: has Belgium really signed the agreement?
No, Belgium has not signed. It's very clear. So Belgium has not signed it. But
to just comment on the Netherlands, is the other way around. No one from the Dutch government was present, but the Dutch government did sign it afterwards.
They were one of the two countries that came in. So I think we will now go for open some questions to the public, and after we can even do a little discussion if people want. But what I think is that what is important is that we see a bit the weird situation that it is in Belgium. We are talking about nuclear power, but it seems that there is a lack of, I wouldn't say ambition, but daring to actually take decisions on this.
Commitment.
We have a law that forbids nuclear power, new nuclear reactors to be built, and that forbids the production and prolongation of current reactor. There has been an agreement within the government to prolong two of the power plants, so 2 gigawatts of capacity for 10 extra years, so until 2035. However, the law has still to be changed. So I think in Belgium, unlike the Netherlands, it was not really a taboo. It's something that that is being talked in the public debate, but it's where I think in the politics it's very tricky today to take decisions, as many different views are rallied within the government without a clear perspective on what is the stance on Belgium for nuclear power. I don't know if any of the public has got some questions for us. Yeah.
Hello, this is Robert. I just want to have an opinion from you guys. What do you think about the current shift in the nuclear industry, where people are more focusing on the SMRs, the small modular reactors, and the shift is being focused on the SMRs rather than the large nuclear reactors. So I just want to have an overview of what do you guys feel about this shift.
For me, small modular reactors have many more benefits than just a normal large thermal reactors. First of all, as we briefly mentioned, the nuclear waste will be less radiotoxic. It will be much less in terms of volume as well. They will be smaller, easier to install. In general, actually, it will be much easier and much better. It will be much easier and much better to get them up and running rather than a very large reactor, like for example an EPR 1000 or something like this. If you're looking at the one in France, Flamanville, for example, or the one in Finland, they have been constructing these ones for so many years. There have been so many delays. If we're now switching to SMRs, operating these reactors will be so much faster. Regulations still need to be adapted for those SMRs, but they can be much faster approved. The regulations for SMRs can also be much easier to implement than such a huge monster of an EPR 1000, for example. So for me, it's there are only benefits, let's say.
So some of the things you said I agree with, some I really disagree with. I think we also need to get our definitions straight, sorry, but because SMR means small modular reactor, so it just means small, so it can be of the current generation.
Yes, yeah, true.
And so what you're talking of the waste benefit, that's the advanced.
They were going for fast, yes.
Yeah. And I think there's also trade-offs. Look, personally, I think we have good ways to deal with the nuclear waste. So I don't see that as a problem, but it's wasteful. It is usable material, and we have to be honest. There is a trade-off on going small, as you may have less of the high-level nuclear waste, but you will have more activation of the materials.
Of the reactor itself, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
More volume. It's also nuclear waste.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
But I will. Okay, so I will. But this is a small point. But I think we should talk more about the benefits and disadvantages of an SMR. I think the large reactor, in purely on paper, ideally should be better because it's economies of scale.
Economy of scale, yes, but you are fixed on such a large reactor. Small reactors, they are modular. You need more, you just place another. Might be a bit too straightforward, but if you need a bit more power, you just add another reactor.
No,
so the modularity of a small modular reactor is a very big benefit.
No, and I agree with you there, but I think purely in terms of material and personnel, you will need more construction material for the small reactors and more people.
You lose indeed the economy of scale. That's true. Yes.
But I think the big advantage is more in the financing, is that a private company really cannot finance a $10 billion reactor.
Yes,
and a small modular reactor that costs $3 billion, they can finance. And as you say, if it is faster to build, probably easier to regulate because the safety case is much simpler. It would be cheaper in the short run. You know, you'd have to pay less interest loans, while in these large reactors, often 3/4 of the price is just interest, is paying the market interest. But I would say that a large reactor, if the government invests, they should go with a large reactor because, and this is my opinion, of course, this is my personal opinion, but there is research that say that government should go large because they can finance it cheaply, and it's it's cheaper in the long run. It's cheaper after 30 years to 80 years.
That might be the problem if you want to have the government be involved in this. Then you bump into problems.
You what?
Then you bump into problems. If you really want to have the government financing everything, then you come into politics, and that might delay everything.
Okay, so it's of course my own political bias, but I would like the government to be more involved in the energy transition.
Of course, that would be ideal, of course.
Just to say, if the government is usually involved, or at least the country, they also have a stake in this. Unlike today, where you have private operators, if they just change the law and forbid it, then the cost is for the private operator. Whereas if the government is involved, well, it's on their budget. So I think that it's always a bit more nuanced.
You're tying the man.
Maybe I will.
One last aspect. You're tying the man to the ship, but I would also say, if the government finance directly, they can also benefit in the long term.
Yes, well, that was my point. But yes. But just to answer your question also about SMR and what I think, because in Belgium there's been a big discussion on this. Today we have 7 large power reactors which are planning to be phased out because there is a law to phase it out. However, the same governmental coalition that decided to phase out, they also said, small modular reactors, that seems like the future, let's invest in this. And so they throw quite a bit of money at research into this, which in a way is always good to have funding research. What I do believe is a big problem for the climate crisis, and this is why we are here, is that this distracts us from the real solution that is there today. Today we have 7 working big power reactors that could be prolonged. That means if they're prolonged, there's much less waste produced because all the materials that is activated, the radioactive confinement building and reactor apparatus, is not needed to go to waste. It just can be operated again and again, and you just have the spent fuel, which you could use for fast breeders in the future. And today what we are doing is we are saying the small modular reactors are, which is, by the way, as Yonis said, a bit of a catch-all phrase. There's so many variants to this. You have old technology, just smaller, big technology, new ones, and so on. So you have quite a wide variety of SMR. And usually when people are very big proponents of SMR, they either are from the sector and they have a very specific technology in mind, or they are, let's say, people who are not really advocates of nuclear energy, and they say, well, this is kind of delaying the discussion because today there hasn't been a proper SMR in the definition that people agree to what it is today that has been put into commercial operation, let alone projected. And we've heard about NuScale in the recent developments. It was one of the most promising SMR for a power pressurized water reactor. People were very euphoric about their their technology because they're the first one to get proper funding, actual project, sites, development, backing from the government, authorization from regulators. They're one of the furthest SMR companies today. And now that they're planning the actual build out, they realize that the costs are skyrocketing. And that's usually because when you have a technology that is not proven in the industrial scale, the big problem is industrialization. And this is not just for nuclear. I mean, I worked in the telecom industry in the past. We made I was working in R&D. R&D is great. You have you talk always about little millions, 1 or 2 million projects and so on. When you talk about industrialization of a product, then it's hundreds of million. And in the nuclear, the research is in hundreds of million, and the development is in the tens of billion. So this is the major issue, is that people think, oh, we have something that works in a lab, let's just make it to make electricity. Well, it's a big difference between industrialization and research.
You have a good point, but I also think there are lots of different SMR concepts.
Of course.
Like in the nuclear, NuScale went in a particular direction. There are other very different that we don't know if they will or will not succeed. And I think this is always normal with innovation, that a lot of newcomers
there's
fail.
There's process of scale up,
Yeah.
That's what he has just mentioned.
Yeah, no, you're right. I wanted to comment on what you said earlier, which was very interesting, that by prolonging the existing reactors, you actually reduce the
amount of waste.
And I think we have to think of the circular economy. You have the 3 R's of circular economy: reduce, reuse, recycle. So recycle is the last resort. So first you reduce your consumption. Second, you reuse what's already working. Yep. So prolonging the nuclear reactor is more sustainable than recycling the nuclear waste. So you extend, and then finally you reuse the waste. And I see there's a question.
Yeah.
It's all about SMRs. I work a little bit, I'm Dutch by the way, so and I have a question on the government change. I won't tell you what I think of the government other than I did not vote for them. But you have these small modular reactors, and I work with a Danish company a bit that does this stuff, and they make thorium molten salt reactors. And if you think about these things, they tick all the boxes, right? They are carbon neutral. They are thermal breeding reactors, so they're not fast breeding reactors, but they use thorium, which is available everywhere, doesn't need to be enriched. You're not dependent on the Middle East. You're not dependent on Russia. You don't need high SA, low enriched uranium from Russia for that type of reactor, right? They are passively safe. They can't melt down, they can't explode because they're not pressurized. And the salts that they use, the beryllium fluoride or something, are completely chemically stable, right? You can use them as waste burners because they don't create waste. You can actually burn the existing nuclear waste, which is stored in Borsele. You can actually burn it up in these reactors and get an enormous amount of free energy, right? And then they are also cheaper than all alternatives. It costs about 20 million to build one, which fits in a shipping container. The current estimates, which are independently verified, is $20 per megawatt hour, right? Which I see you're astounded appropriately. Of course, not for the first one, because you need scale. You can build on a production line, one of them a day. If you have 2 production lines, you can have 2 of them a day. They provide 100 megawatt of power.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, the question will come. But this is important as background, right? Because this is really important as background, because there's so many small modular reactor technologies. Some are on paper. This one actually exists. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it tested with salts at 550 degrees Celsius, right? The only test that they're waiting for is a criticality test, right? So the question is, the previous government in the Netherlands said we are not going to do advanced nuclear reactors because we don't want to be the first ones to have to deal with the teething problems. We want to wait till other people have solved it, and then we're going to do this. Now, the current government, would they have the guts to change that and to say, okay, we'll adapt the regulation because the safety profile is so much better. You don't need the heavy regulation, but it still needs to be supervised. Will they adapt the regulation and allow, for instance, the testing or the building of a thorium molten salt reactor in the Netherlands. Because if it doesn't go to the Netherlands, well, it can't go to Denmark because they don't allow it yet. It may go to other countries, but the Netherlands would have a real opportunity here. And if they don't grab it, other countries will be there first.
Oh, thank you. That's a very interesting question to me for several reasons. First, it's funny that you say, I'll also say I did not vote for the current government, but you know, it's what the people want. It's hard to say what the government will say because I think the negotiations for a new government will take a long time, so we can assume that the caretaker government, so the previous one, plays a big role. So it's very interesting, and I think I can guess which company you're talking about.
Yeah.
Personally, I have worked in the past year as a management consultant for a thorium reactor startup in the Netherlands. So a Dutch competitor of this Danish company. But they know each other well, and I personally think there's a lot of nuance to these benefits that you are talking about, because I think that the existing reactors, again, are very safe. And uranium is very abundant. Yes, it is more. No, it is. No, I agree, it is more. But that is true. But we are not. We don't have to be dependent on geopolitical enemies like Russia for our uranium. You know, we can set up alternatives. But yeah, this would offer a lot more security because thorium is on the beaches in a lot of country. It's often waste from the mining industry, so you're making something that someone else has to get rid of it. You're turning it into a use case. So that is a benefit, I agree. I also think thorium reactors have other benefits, like that they can go at high temperatures, 500 degrees, offer a lot more possibilities. Also the medium is practical. And as you said, to consume the nuclear waste from existing reactors, the company I worked with has the same promise, or they're actually working with French conglomerates to this. So this is real, and I believe that this will be there in 15 to 20 years.
2028.
So wait. Can I finish, Emeric?
Go for it.
So 2028 remains to be seen, but it will be there. What the company where I worked with, their founder had a more modest or somewhat modest ambitions, but he said, look, thorium has a role and it offers perspective for a nuclear program, and so there is a place, there is a synergy between thorium reactors and the existing large pressure water reactors. So the two can coexist in an ecosystem where one, is the proven technologies can be there assuredly, and it can provide the waste to be consumed in the thorium reactors. And of course, if you want to attract more people to work in nuclear, you need more students. You have to give them something exciting. So I think that it is possible what you're saying, because it's not just the high-level politics that decide it, but it's also the institutions underneath, the ministries, organizations like Top Sector Energy. You know this one? This is the main innovation organization for renewables and all that. They excluded nuclear. Now they're including nuclear, in particular thorium reactors. So it offers a lot of perspective. So
maybe to
I
answer
am hopeful.
Maybe to answer his question,
But I am answering his question.
But on in the Netherlands, do you think that there is a chance that they will pursue a route with certain SMR technology in the very near future? Would that mean to the compromise of large-scale reactors, or in complementary? What do you think?
In complementary, at least that would be my preference, at the two in a complementary. But the priority should be the large reactors, because that's proven. But the thorium reactors can be sidetracked. And final thing, the company you work with, there's another company in Denmark. There are many companies in France. Like, they're all taking a different approach. But I think that some will succeed, others will not. But they will all provide something of value. So I think there's also opportunity for them to work together more to, get very economic thorium reactors.
if I may comment a little bit on what you said, because you said a very important word during your small presentation. You talked about criticality that wasn't achieved yet, and we're talking here about the wasn't tested on the prototype, and this is where I say there's a huge gap in industrialization, and this is not just about nuclear again. So it's all industries. The difference between a prototype and industrial scale is quite a huge gap in terms of the achievement and money. But maybe is there like a final question, because I think we'll need to wrap up.
I don't think we need to wrap up, right? Or do we?
Unless continue.
Can continue.
These reactors were tested for 4 years in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, in the 1960s.
Sure.
And they were shut down by Nixon for political reasons. If we had used, if Nixon hadn't shut them down, this technology would have been cheaper than oil and gas and anything in the 1980s. We wouldn't have a climate crisis. So we still have a chance to redeem ourselves.
But I'm not saying that it's that I'm against it. I'm just saying.
So it has been tested. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's only that this design, and we know it will work. It just needs to be observed by the regulator.
Yeah.
I think I can also comment about the regulator. So I think this will be very new for the Netherlands, even for the large reactors. But our regulations are largely inspired by the German regulator, with some tweaks with the Finnish regulations, and they're mainly done with large water reactors in mind, and actually that's all over the world. But they are open to adapting it. So there are parallels between the small the MSR and light water reactors. So in the end, in a safety regulation, you want to achieve the same principles, right? You want to avoid accidents. You want to be prepared, even if an accident happens, that you can do something about it. You want to have mitigation. You want to have multiple barriers. So I think any molten salt reactor company can just apply, talk with the regulators, and with time something will be developed. It will not be easy, but in essence it is doable with.
So you're saying that you have one giant unit regulating body for small modular reactors, or because the thing that if something works for one country, it won't necessarily work for another country. Or
what
in terms of regulations, you are advocating for something across all countries, or because
I was not even, but I think that's a great idea. But no, I was just saying that I think that the existing regulations can be interpreted in a way to regulate molten salt reactors.
Maybe we have one more question from the audience, if there isn't.
Any other questions?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
One more question. I'd like you to position yourself as maybe the Ministry of Energy in your country. What policies will you change in terms of introducing nuclear in your country? Especially, I understand guys from Germany have a nuclear ban. Just what policies will you guys maybe bring on the table in terms of...
Are you talking about advocating, or...?
Not really advocating, but with the current... I just want to have an idea of what you guys will have if you're given that position to make maybe changes in the nuclear sector. What will you guys do?
Yeah. Do you want to start, or...? No, go for it.
Me? Okay, because I think I can keep it short, because I've mentioned most of these already. I think, remove the phase-out law for the existing reactor. There's no need, because the politics wants to extend it. And I would say, actually, 2 reactors is not enough. We should really look at 4 or 8, because we will not yet get the cost learnings at 2 reactors. I think it's 4, like here in Baraka. 8 would be better. And then I think there are some optimization studies have already seen that for 2040 we could use 9.6 gigawatts. So that is six reactors. I don't know. Not 12.8. I don't. Let's forget the numbers, but we can already like say, okay, that's where we want to go. Start there. And your suggestion, indeed, have some advanced reactor program in parallel as like the next step. I think the government should take a stake in it. I mean, it's the best way to make it cost effective for the taxpayers and, to get dividends for the decades to come. And I also think, of course, the government should have more communication with people and also look more at the European context, because we're all doing our small modular reactor initiatives in different countries. Maybe we're like duplicating work where we could do more together.
I completely agree. However, I would like to add something. As you said, we are now looking at energy from country to country basis, and I think we should have more of a European collaboration. Energy is not something that you should deal with country by country, but really like in a giant collaboration. Yep. I mean, there are countries who should be perfect, ideal for solar, perfect for wind, perfect for perfect for. So we should really collaborate on that. I am not advocating to replace all renewables by nuclear. Absolutely not. I should think that there should be a collaboration between a base. Nuclear should be really the base of everything, and should be supplemented by wind and by solar. We have a Minister of Energy who recently said in the news that she would like to triple renewables by 2030. Yes, she wants to triple renewables by 2030. However, if there is zero solar and zero wind, 0 times 3 is still zero. It's still zero. So we really need that nuclear. We really need nuclear base load. We really need that nuclear part. And then, of course, we add solar, we add wind, we add whatever we want. The security that nuclear gives, it's something that we really cannot miss. We had 7 reactors. 2 have been already shut down. We cannot restart them again because, I mean, several things have already been dismantled. So these are gone forever. What I would do is at least, of course, it might already be too late. I mean, it is actually already too late. But if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago or something like this, I would have said, well, those remaining 5 reactors, I would keep them open for much longer. Invest in next generation reactor technology. And yes, as well, Belgium has now about 50% of its energy comes from nuclear. 50%. 5, not 15, 50. So according to the regulations now, we would like to, they would like to shut down every reactor. How are we going to possibly get, where do they want to get the 50% of energy from? Where? I do not see that they would like to get it from renewables, from solar and wind. So that 50% should come from somewhere. And what I would do is keep those existing reactors open for longer, invest in new reactors, in new technology, and yeah. So that's what I would do.
Maybe to conclude, I'll start with answering your question. I'll say a few words of conclusion. I'll let you speak. You're lucky to ask me. I'm a candidate for the elections next year. So yeah. So there we go. If I would be lucky enough to become in charge, the first thing that would be on my mind is to repeal the law of 2003, which is the law of phasing out of nuclear power in Belgium. Extending the lifetime, we always talk about extension of lifetime, which is such a wrong word, by the way. These reactors were designed with a financial sunset.
40 years.
40. Financial sunset clause of 40 years, so that within 40 years the investment would be completely reimbursed and therefore amortized. No, how do you say it? Amortization.
Amortized?
Yeah, completely amortized. So this is the idea. This has been transformed within the political landscape into a pure technical sunset, that reactors can only operate for 40 years. This is not the case. We see that now new plants that come online, they have a designed for 60 years with possibility of 40-year extension. This is all the new large-scale reactors such as Baraka that has recently been opened here in the UAE is designed for. So what would we do is exactly this. So phase out this law, extend all the existing reactors, recommission the ones that have been shut down just last year. They're still there. You can you need to do some upgrades and updates in order to restart them, and then think about the future. A lot of the politics have been talking now about the rebirth of nuclear within Belgium, and some of the parties that are also running for the parliament are now considering to have at least 25% of energy coming from nuclear. So you said we have 50% of electricity coming from nuclear, but it only represents something like 10% of energy, because only 20% of energy is electricity. If we want to decarbonize our energy demands, we will need to electrify most of our usage, and most of this electricity will need to come from nuclear energy. And so in the total energy package, 25% should become from nuclear, and that would mean to have about 12 gigawatts of nuclear power. Currently we have, or we had 6 gigawatts of reactors by now. So it would be 12 to 15 gigawatts. That is the current plan by 2050. So what we need to do is to prolong the to do lifetime extension or prolonging the life of the existing reactors, and to plan the build-outs of new ones. We have seen how the UAE has done this with great success, being on time, on budget. Is a great example of where you can do it at a coastline in a country that has a very hot climate, because one of the oppositions in cold Belgium is to say that nuclear power cannot work with global warming because it's too hot. Well, we see it works here. It works without a problem. There's plans to they even have plans to double this power plant for now, or let's say projects to do this. So we can do this, and at the same time we should invest in small modular reactor technology, which have very specific applications as well. They can be closer to cities, closer to industries, to provide heating, cooling. We've had many panels that discuss this, about how future smaller reactor technologies can have many benefits other than just large-scale electricity production. And so this is going to be the mix for tomorrow, what I think we should look into in Belgium.
Bravo. I had a final thought.
Yeah.
So I very much agree with what you said. You're right that we should not look at this just from our national perspectives, but from the European perspective, because we share the grid.
Yeah.
I think we can also even look even bigger.
Worldwide, you mean?
Worldwide.
Exactly.
Exactly. Because we have this pledge to triple nuclear, but where is the most global energy demand going to come? The growth is really going to be in developing countries.
Exactly. Yes.
And right now there are very few, maybe only 2 suppliers who are supplying to these countries. And it's Russia and China. And of course, I'm here as a European saying, Russia's bad and all that, but they are a very good deal that many developing countries just cannot refuse. And Western countries often say, no, you should not deal with Russia, but then developing country governments will say, okay, but what's the alternative? What will you do for me?
For them, they are struggling with the money. I mean, the funding of those reactors is a big problem for them.
Yeah.
So if we can have global collaboration, that would solve their problem, their energy problem, and yeah.
Yes.
Indeed, I completely agree.
So I think Western nations, or especially the EU, should do more to export and also help developing countries in
With the
financing
financing
plan.
yeah.
And
Exactly.
it is a little bit of global justice, because you know, where has uranium come from a lot? It has come from developing countries, but they also need to have their power plants.
So maybe a bit of hope then to conclude this panel and one of the last sessions of the day is to say that, well, in the Netherlands and Belgium, the discourse is changing. We've had a sunset clause and sunset laws for nuclear power. In the Netherlands now they already have projects for future build-outs. We need to increase this project to have even more ambition, I think. In Belgium, we see that the discourse is also changing. The taboo has been broken a long time ago, and now we see that a lot of political parties within the country are starting to come around and to see that nuclear will be an essential part of the energy mix for the foreseeable future. And and I think, and I do hope for our countries that we will see many of the current reactors being extended and many new reactors to come online. Just to comment on a very small fun fact for the ones that don't know. So Borsele, what Yonis is the reactor that Yonis talked about earlier during this panel, is situated 20 kilometers from the nuclear power plant of Doel, which is at the Belgian border with the Netherlands. By the way, Borsele is also at the Belgian border with Belgium. But they so they are 20 kilometers apart, and the Netherlands currently projects to build their new power plants in Borsele, so 20 kilometers, and we plan to phase out 3 gigawatts of our nuclear plants in Doel. So we have 3 gigawatts that come offline in Belgium, and then 20 kilometers from there, same climate, same. I mean, basically the neighbors are just building even less than 3 gigawatts. So I'm wondering what is the goal of this? It just sounds like a very expensive endeavor. Instead of reuse, reduce, recycle, we're just throwing away, build new ones, throw it. It sounds like money wasted and things. So we should really make our politics aware of this very fact.
Can we buy Doel? Can you give it to us?
I think it would be a great idea. If this is a solution to keep nuclear open, I'd be very much for. Well, thank you very much for this. Thanks to the speakers for their engagement.
Thanks to the crew.
I wish you a very good COP, and I hope that we will see you all next year with even more nuclear projects around the world being projected. So, thank you.